Mcguigan said he's been in scary situations all his life, and being from Southern Ireland, born in the early 60s, there's no need to doubt what he says. So a lot of people are scared to talk up against MTK Global, apparently. But Mcguigan is standing his ground. Now, he said they've poached 5 fighters from him. I can think of Josh Taylor, Carl Frampton. Although, how did the Martin Bacoli situation work out? He signed a managerial deal with MTK Global, but he signed with Eddie Hearn with a promotional agreement with Matchroom. And he did used to be on Cyclones, Martin Bacoli. Now, Cyclone Promotions went bust, but their website is still up. It looks like Lee McGregor, who was on their roster, he signed an advisory deal with MTK Global in 2019. So even though Mcguigan is saying they've poached 5 fighters off him, isn't it a case that the company went bust? Cyclone went bust. The Channel 5 deal went down the pan. Mick Hennessy's took it over again. And they couldn't provide dates for their fighters. What they expect was going to happen. MTK Global are no saints. I think that's pretty obvious. But there's Mcguigan running his mouth. But look at the headlines. Irish News. Evidence Barry McGuigan's boxing promotion businesses breached Companies Act, says High Court. Failing to pay Carl Frampton's purses. The McGuigans and the Framptons went for a legal battle that went on and was resolved recently. And Frampton said he was satisfied with the outcome. There was also paying some of their personal bills with the business accounts and stuff like that. And it got awfully messy. So Barry McGuigan hasn't been totally clean. For as much crap as he might want to talk about MTK, the evidence is there that he hasn't been a clean and clean businessman himself. In the court battle with Frampton, according to the BBC documentary, Frampton says he doesn't pay MTK a penny for their managerial services. So that prompted the question, how are they making their money then? Well, they've got high-tech gym facilities and fight cards, but word on the street is that it's all a front to wash the alleged drug money. You see, because when Josh Taylor won the WBSS in 2019, Mcguigan had some role of management in his career at the time, but the company had folded. And soon after that, Josh was out of there, signed with Top Rank, Bob Arum, and MTK Global. I mean, business is business. Bob Arum or MTK Global didn't do anything illegal. Maybe Barry McGuigan should look at his own paperwork if fighters are getting out of their agreements or contractual obligations. Maybe he needs to straighten out his end of the dynamic. So that's 4 boxers who Mcguigan had who are now being advised or managed by MTK Global. I can't think of the other one. Chris William Smith, he's not signed to MTK. He seems to be on Matchroom cards quite a lot. So I'm assuming he has some agreement with Matchroom. I remember when they just had a few Irish lads on there, man. Couple of British fighters. And now, they got Jojo Diaz, Jamel Herring. Robert Garcia's got a deal with there as a trainer. Tasha Jonas, Chantel Cameron, and a whole load of other women boxers, a whole load of Eastern European fighters. According to Panorama, they've got over 100 boxers on deck. Now, Mcguigan was talking about a potential monopoly where they just take the game over. Al Haymon's got 200 fighters, and we know he wants to monopolize boxing in some form. Eddie Hearn, he must have similar numbers to the PBC and MTK as well across the spectrum of Matchroom and the Zone. Eddie's got some big numbers there and significant players as well. But yeah, MTK have a big roster, of which I think they said they had 12 world champions. Now, Daniel Kinahan has become a polarizing figure in popular culture. Because let's face it, there's a lot of people who admire Daniel Kinahan. The fact that take no shit, ruthless, gets it done and gets money. I'm talking about people like Tyson Fury, Billy Joe Saunders and Bob Arum. They co-sign him, they big him up. Billy Joe Saunders was thinking of retiring from boxing if he couldn't retain his services. Now, I want to see the undisputed heavyweight title fight as much as anyone. Of course I do. But at the same time, You have to be really naive to think if he's going to be the center of how the deal was brokered, how is it not going to make headline news and court unwarranted attention? The Irish authorities, Spain, and America, they pay lip service to looking into the dealings of MTK Global. They talk about getting Daniel Kinahan and his associates deported and extradited from Bahrain, put on trial in Ireland. But the woman said the only time Daniel Kinahan steps back is when he gets bad headlines from the press. So he doesn't feel threatened by the authorities because look, man, look. You can't wash up all that money there if you're not connected. You got to be connected. You got to be hooked up with the right people. And I'll say no more than that because I know no more than that. And when you got guys like Frank Warren, who's basically working alongside him, if he promotes Tyson Fury and if Daniel manages Tyson Fury, you're working alongside him. There's no way around that. Same with Bob Arum. Bob Arum was more direct in bigging Daniel Kinahan up, not just for brokering the Joshua Fury deal, but Bob was also bigging him up for putting on a Michael Conlan fight in Ireland as well. And even Eddie Hearn and anyone else who's invested in the Fury Joshua fight, you're all co-signing him by working with him. And I'm not saying they shouldn't. I want to see the fight. And I've got my pay-per-view money ready. But he's still working with these credible, clean moguls in the game. Let's keep it real. You know, if we go into the goings-on on how a lot of big business get their start money, a lot of eyebrows would be raised, I'm guessing. The BBC, who aired the MTK Global Martin Kinahan story on Panorama, they're not beyond agendas either. Like the apparent investigation they were talking about in America to look at where MTK are getting their finances from. It's not no lawsuit or an investigation. It's a civil suit made by one promoter who said MTK stole his fighter. So they sensationalize things for their own means and their own agendas. Recently, we've been seeing these pictures with Daniel Kinahan and certain boxers, Tyson Fury mainly, and the cosigns from Bob Arum. These are not just random occurrences. Oh, there's Daniel Kinahan and Tyson Fury and Flick. No, these situations are set up. Bob Arum was deliberately co-signing Daniel Kinahan to give him some credibility in the legit business world, well, the so-called legit, allegedly legit world of boxing. That's what that was, yeah? Because if he just wanted to stay in the back as a silent player, he would have done so, and Tyson Fury or Bob Arum wouldn't have said anything, and they wouldn't be in pictures with him. Trust me, these people are cleverer than that. Daniel has an ego, just like Suge Knight has an ego. Suge Knight, according to Harry O., a drug dealer, apparently, who helped fund Death Row, said Suge was just supposed to lay low, handle what he had to handle. But no, Suge wanted to be in the camera, in the magazines, big cigar in his mouth, wearing all red, which is supposedly his affiliation with the Pyru gangs. And he fucked it all up. Too much attention come to Death Row, unwanted attention. And Daniel, from what the woman reporter, what's her name? I can't just keep calling her the woman reporter. Nicola Tallant, an Irish lady. She said Daniel's ego, he had to let the world know that he brokered the Fury Joshua deal and that he's managing Tyson Fury. He could have laid back and kept it a bit more low-key, but, you know, he wants to be a superstar too. I mean, there was a film done with his blessing, consent, and I'm guessing backing, about the Regency shooting. You know, where they made it look like this was more a political shooting, a government issue, than whatever gangland ties were believed to play a part in the initial story. And they've got this actor who looks nothing like Daniel, you know what I mean? Like chiseled jaw and a lot taller. And they're making him out to be this mythical legend, not just a drug dealer. So his ego is at play. And this is where he could leave himself open, the woman said. Just like how Suge Knight did. This is why you see Al Heyman doesn't talk as a black man with so much power. This is why he doesn't talk. Because anything he says is going to be used against him in an inflammatory way. He knows that. One thing about Al, wise as anything. The bottom line is, Barry Mcguigan, He got played out because he was too small. He was small potatoes. Yeah? And yes, MTK Global have probably crushed his promotional enterprise. They probably crushed it. Because he didn't have much fighters on there already. And if they took 5 out of that small roster, they crushed his business. But that's because you're a small player in the game. What happened to Ricky Hatton, Mick Hennessy, and Frank Maloney when Eddie became the big cheese on Sky? And even Frank Warren to a degree. They went underground for a little while. You know what I mean? And Matchroom ended up with most of their fighters who were worth anything commercially or pugilistically. The only one who's still relevant, really, is Frank Warren. Ricky Hatton is a promoter. He probably still got a promoter's license. Why don't he promote Campbell Hatton instead of letting Matchroom and Eddie Hearn do it? Because he doesn't have the juice. He knows his place. He knows his role. You see, MTK Global, they have a good relationship with Eddie. Yeah? A lot of the Matchroom fighters have promotional deals with Eddie and Matchroom and have managerial deals with MTK. So there's a happy medium there. But if you're small fry in any industry, you're going to get eaten up. So yes, look, Mcguigan's a fighter, so he's fighting back. And he's not scared. And he wants to take them down. He said they're dangerous for boxing. Well, you go tell that to us who want to see the undisputed heavyweight championship fight, if they're dangerous for boxing. Most people are going to back Kinahan if he can put that fight on. Listen, if Kinahan can put that fight on after agreeing terms between AJ and Fury, you're not going to get no hardcore boxing fans to back against him. None. After all the shit that we've had to put up with promotional outfits, fighters and networks, and sanctioning bodies. You can't preach if you're a politician. If you know about the expenses that your fellow peers have been pocketing for years, you can't preach morals. If you're a politician and you know your peers are cheating on their wives or vice versa, paedophile rings, the BBC, you can't preach to nobody. Especially not about gangsters. Gangsters have been deified in film, music, for years and years and years. Right? This guy is a cult hero for a lot of males from a certain demographic. And the more notoriety, if he's to gain more notoriety, will result in the police authorities and the government having to do something. And he's obviously done a good job at covering his tracks and his paper trail. And maybe the only way they're going to be able to hurt a Daniel Kinahan is to put the so-called clean, credible, respectable businessman who he's either partners with, affiliated to, or has an association with under the spotlight. Who are we talking about? Frank Warren, BT, Bob Arum, Top Rank, ESPN, Queensbury, Eddie Hearn, Sky, DAZN, Matchroom, etc., etc. And if they don't disassociate themselves with these unsavory characters, well, they're going to make it hard for them to attract any legitimate sponsors and advertisement revenue. And they don't want that. You know, the likes of Ofcom could get involved with BT, Sky Sports. Now I'm saying could get involved, but listen, when you're talking the type of money that Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury are generating over 2 fights, silence can be bought. And not can be bought, will be bought. And that's the bottom line of it. To build cases against really powerful criminals is very hard because there's a lot of witnesses who will need to testify to put them behind bars. And they're just too shit scared to do so because of the repercussions. And when I say criminals, I ain't talking about the bloke they just had on Panorama. I'm not just talking about him alone. I'm talking about from certain dudes, even on the street, that people are too scared to rat on. Certain gangs or individuals, they're too scared to rat on. All the way up to the dude they had on Panorama, right up to the top there in Parliament, police force, the military. I ain't separating it. Tyson Fury, I'm not going to say it's a loyalty thing. Because he and Mick Hennessy and the whole Fury family used to talk like they were blood with Mick Hennessy. They would never leave Mick. But they did. Now with Daniel Kinahan, you know what I mean? As nice as Tyson Fury is with his hands, switching stances ain't going to help him when the heavies are after him licking shots. Even if Tyson did want to leave, Or Billy Joe Saunders? Might not be that easy getting out. I don't know. Right? But look, all jokes aside, how important is Daniel Kinahan? Well, Ben Davison was saying when Fury was down and out, there'd be times he would contemplate how he could get back in the game. But there was a lot of obstacles. I don't know if it was over the Martin Carefoot, Nandrolone, Wild Boar thing, but a lot of people were threatening Tyson Fury with lawsuits when he was even thinking about a comeback. And there was a lot of obstacles in his way. But Daniel Kinahan cleared the path. Literally cleared the path. So Tyson is going to be forever grateful for that, no doubt. No doubt. So he's a very powerful guy. Very powerful guy. I mean, Martin Carefoot, how did he come out all loud running to newspapers and stuff? Adamant that he wanted money. And then next, yeah, well, I want a quiet life. Okay. They had Bobby Allen. He, at least on the paperwork, is the head man at MTK Global. And he was number 11 in the Boxing News 50 most powerful people in boxing. When in all truth, if Kinahan is the man who brokered the agreement between AJ and Fury for 2021 over 2 fights, he should have surely been in the top 5 alongside Bob Arum, Eddie Hearn, etc., etc. Yet his name didn't surface in the top 50 somehow. I mean, see, if you're going to do a list like that, are you talking about the 50 most legit people with power? Or are we just talking power generally? Because listen, if we're talking about worldly matters, yeah, there's a lot of unsavory people who have serious influence on our day-to-day lives. A lot of them are smart enough to sit back in the car and just let the wheels turn. I just find it hard to believe that you can do a top 50 most powerful people in boxing and his name don't come up. That's not credible.